It's Vancouver's podcast on the Canada's Podcast Network.
Hi, this is Angela Faye Barnard coming to you from Canada's podcast. We're excited to be filming here on location in Nanaimo with Adrian, who is based in Vancouver. And let me just introduce you to Adrian. Adrian Moise has a track record for building and leading high-performance agile teams and delivering great software products and engaging user experiences on multiple platforms. Adrian's focus has always been on the delivery of excellence. So companies like Michelin, Nintendo, Nike, Electronic Arts are just a few of the brands he's worked with in Canada, the USA, and Europe. Adrian founded and is the CEO of Aequilibrium, a Vancouver-based digital product development and design studio dedicated to creating web, mobile, and Internet of Things solutions. Aequilibrium is committed to helping clients get their product out to market quickly, efficiently, and with zero waste. His team strives to set the bar for engaging customer services for the product by combining an intuitive interface design with carefully crafted code, leading to an unforgettable customer experience. Welcome, Adrian.
Thank you. It's a pleasure for me to be on your show.
Absolutely. Well, so let's kick off with telling us a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey.
Sure. I had the opportunity to be part of building high-performance teams, starting with my first job in Europe when I assisted Ubisoft to build an office in Romania. We started with a team of maybe 10 people, and in about 4 years, we probably have 100 people or so developing entertainment solutions from Europe. So Ubisoft is like Electronic Arts of Europe. Then I moved to Canada about 20-something years ago, and I started by doing my PhD at Simon Fraser University. And I started a summer job that turned up into 4 years of full-time employment with a company who became a Kesson Medical Imaging. And in those boom days of the 2000s, the company was looking to bring additional skilled professionals on board, so help that company grow too. Another experience I had was here in Canada with Electronic Arts, who was looking to build a mobile gaming division with platforms such as Sony PSP and Nintendo DS. The company was feeling Electronic Arts was really interested in developing games in-house for mobile devices. So I had the opportunity to be part of the team who established the foundation for mobile game development and Electronic Arts. We started with a handful of senior managers, and in 6 months we had 120 people.
Wow.
Just before Equilibrium, I was part of another company who had the executive move from Regina to Vancouver. And my role was to build a delivery team here in Vancouver. I was probably employee number 9, and I helped grow that organization to about 90 people in 18 months. In the process, we also became one of the top 10 employers in Canada by the 2 years later. So I was excited about this idea of starting something new, in which we break down the barriers, the, if you want, constraints that exist into a more established organization, and start with the principle of agility, and start in Equilibrium. And I had the opportunity to bring teams together similarly from different backgrounds, multidisciplinary teams. We grew fast and sustainably. And we have been rewarded 2 years in a row and been nominated among top 5 best employers in BC out of the 700 or so organizations who got into this contest. Wow. So Equilibrium managed to grow fast, yes, sustainably.
Congratulations, that's excellent news. Yeah. So how big is your team now?
We have about 50 people.
Okay. And Adrian, what makes a best employer scenario? What's the criteria?
It's a great question. Most recently, as we are growing the organization fast. We tripled our company 2 years ago. Last year we doubled up. So we want to grow fast but sustainably.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to not just put warm bodies in the seat, but we want to increase the density of talent with the new hires that we bring on board. We had an opportunity to go and review our culture and values. What you see behind me here is one of the posters that we put in place to represent what the company is, what are some of the values that we believe into, what's the purpose of the organization. So for us, the concept of balance is very important, which is what you see in the name of the organization, Equilibrium. I always got excited about the idea of harmony, balance between user experience and technology, between craftsmanship and speed, between agility and thoughtfulness. So employees who have this, who are grounded, who feel they are well balanced between personal priorities, jobs, clients, internal focus, people who are resourceful, who are entrepreneurial, who enjoy having this autonomy to do their best work and they're passionate about their craft, have the tendency to succeed at Equilibrium. We saw some of them being recognized, promoted even multiple times a year, and growing their career fast. One of our priorities, and if you want differentiators, is that we help our employees reach up their potentials and develop their career faster than any other organization.
Tell me a little bit about how your team works, Adrian. Are you all based in one space? Do you have remote workers? Do you have a combination of Canadian and international workers? Tell us a bit about your makeup.
Sure. It's a bit of a combination. All our team is based in Canada, in particular in BC. Last year, we opened a second office in Kamloops. That being said, our employees have valued flexibility. So the ability for them to work remote is one of our differentiator, one of the way to basically empower and trust our team to do the best work from whatever location. So using video conferencing capabilities, tools like Slack and other tools for collaboration like Google Drive, the team can do the best work and collaborate from any locations, both internally but also with our clients, which are based both in Canada and United States. So our team is based in Vancouver. We have one of our colleagues who actually moved from Kamloops to join his wife in Ontario. But other than that, everybody is based here in the Greater Vancouver area.
Fantastic. And tell me a little bit about a day in the life of Adrian.
I like to wake early in the morning, prepare breakfast for the family, have sit together, and then take the kids to school. Start early, kind of be in the office around 7:30, and I enjoy that kind of private time to look into some of the things about big thinking, big picture strategy, try to stay away from emails, because that kind of private time, I feel like that's my highest productivity peak. Then we focus on, we get together with the various members of the team, anywhere from me being involved in strategy and positioning to helping up on a pitch, to actually being involved hands-on into delivery. I enjoy participating in these activities, anywhere from meeting with clients or prospects early in the process, or actually being part of the delivery team. So it's a combination between doing project work, strategy and thinking, getting alignment and making some decision with the team around some goals and objectives, recruiting, and in particular talent acquisition, developing employees. It's a big part of what I do. So we're trying to stay ahead, not only on what we need today, but also have a good network. So as new projects come up, or we're looking to expand or move into new disciplines, we have a good network of people to connect with. So being that proactive allows us to continue to grow the business and move at a fast pace.
Adrian, how do you respond to the idea, or at least the the reputation that recruiting and retaining talent is tough right now? Mm-hmm. How are you finding that?
It truly is. I've been in this recruiting in Vancouver for over 20 years for different organizations. I feel it's getting increased. The demand for talent is continuing to increase, especially when we're seeing some of the larger organizations, think about Amazon and Facebook, Google, opening offices in Vancouver. Microsoft has an office in Vancouver, Tableau. So some of the companies who are established either in Silicon Valley or in the Washington State, just south of the border, have also opened offices in here, making the competition for talent more pressing. The schools are trying to keep up and trying to adapt to the new demands of the of employment, what you see coming from the industry. Mm-hmm. However, for us, we're not focusing solely on hiring in Vancouver. So we have a global recruiting strategy.
Okay.
We're also looking in for other strong university hubs in Canada. And we already established an office and opened an office and hire people in other parts of BC. The other thing is I'm also an immigrant, and I have a great pleasure to offer opportunities for other immigrants to build a home and make Canada a place that they thrive in. So we bring people in from Brazil, from Mexico, from Ireland, from France, Russia, Romania. So we have diversity, not only in backgrounds, but also diversity in thought.
Excellent point as far as they bring an international perspective, right? And, mm-hmm. and diversity of culture and thought, and being able to apply it into maybe some of your client projects. Just a little bit curious on that notion. What would be the sort of base criteria that would look at if you were looking at immigrant workers or students coming out of institutions? What would be you could name one sort of basic skill set in programming. What would it be?
Depending on the seniority of the position, there is a combination between hard skills and soft skills.
Okay.
Attitude means a lot for us. So alignment with our values and culture means a lot.
Yep.
So there is a combination between bringing people in who've been there, done that, and then you assume that the knowledge that they have in the past and the achievement they had in the past will translate in your organization, which is not always the case, especially if there is that lack of alignment on the culture and values. Second, there are individuals that have a good start, but they are still earning their careers. But what's special about them is to uncover their potential. So one thing that, for example, we distinguish between a person being nimble and versatile and having a very solid background compared to a person who just been in the industry for many years, because it may be many times 1 year of experience as opposed to people who have a growth mentality and who take this deliberate approach to honing their skills. So for us, the concept of craftsmanship is really important. And how old you are and how long you've been doing a task or a job is not indicative of your ability to deliver value to our clients or to our company.
Okay, I've got to ask, how on earth do you identify that soft, craftsmanship and, value alignment with perhaps I can say, that flexibility? Those are really hard things to identify on a resume or on an application. What's your secret on finding the right people? Is there a compelling question? Is it how do you find them?
It's a great question. There is nobody that has a perfect score in hiring, right? So what we're doing is we make hiring a priority and we bring some of the best people we have into the hiring process. Our company recognizing that it's a great contribution to trust you to be the ambassador for Equilibrium. And you're also acting, if you want, as our own white cell, ensuring that the foreign particles don't get into the body, right? So they're acting as a protection mechanism to ensure that both our DNA, but also our commitment to our customers and to quality do not get diminished. Again, for us, objective is to increase density of talent and not just put warm bodies in the seats.
Right.
So our process is quite complex. So because of that, it's actually, if you want, a challenge, because some people are saying, well, I know a bunch of companies who will hire me just because I know how to spell Java. Well, that's not us. If you're looking for a simple way, what's the company who gets me easier into a seat, then it's not us. Because we believe the people that are the same, they would have the tendency to aggregate, to come together. So if we have really high performing individual, they take good pride to show their skills. And also if they're saying this process of selection is quite elaborate, if you go through the same diligence in bringing the other member of the team, I should be in a good place, as opposed to somehow I got in. What I'm going to find here, nobody knows, because this was the easiest interview process in the world. We don't want to be known for the easiest interview process. So our diligence is going anywhere from starting with the phone screen, obviously after reviewing the application, the resume, and the cover letter, then bringing in the team, the person to meet typically with the hiring manager. But we're not just taking people who are good at interviewing. We get people to test them in the typical work conditions. So we give them an applied test, which is very similar to what they would do in a daily activity. So if it's about software development, they will be writing code and producing architecture.
Let's just talk about that for a second. Let's jump on that. Can you describe, because you said you do a little bit of applied, client work. What's been the most fun or engaging or challenging project that you work? Can you give us a tiny snapshot on what the challenge was from the client and what you did for them?
I don't even know which one to choose, but here's one that we're working on recently. It involves virtual reality and augmented reality related to business intelligence and data sciences. So the interesting part of this project with the client, it's a big company that had the headquarters in Washington State, in Seattle area. Their focus is on business intelligence and analytics, and they recognize that certain technologies such as augmented reality and virtual reality have an increasingly bigger impact. We're seeing organizations like Apple spending a lot of time and dollars to make their tools, like the Apple phone, the AR, VR kit, a priority in terms of their relationship with developers. However, this organization wasn't interested just in providing a cool demo, something that has the zing, but not really, it's just superficial, right? It's got the looks. Hey, it's a cool tool, but when you ask yourself, now, what do I do with this? Because reality is VR, AR it's still in the phase to prove itself as a value-added technology in a number of industries. We understand in the entertainment industry that has got significant applications, but given the cost of acquiring some of these devices, which is still prohibitively high, it's coming down fast, but it's still high. It hasn't achieved mass, adoption. So because of that, other than being something cool to see people, this type of hand manipulation or 3D visualization, the question here is, how do we move the needle? How we make an actual impact in the life of their customers, of their staff? So the mandate we had with this organization was to working with them, to find a case study that's actually applicable to their space, that it's solving a concrete problem. The other thing that they were looking in the software was typically allow for individual manipulation. They are looking for how do we make this more of a collaborative approach? So we started this project without actually knowing what problem we were going to solve. So that was part of the discovery phase. The other thing we didn't know, since we don't know what problem we're actually solving, what technology are we going to be using? Are we going to be using the Google? Are we going to use Microsoft HoloLens? Are we going to use Samsung technology? Are we going to use an Apple device? So in a short period of time, we had this very tight collaboration with the client coming to their office or them coming to our office to figure out what is the problem to solve and how kind of combination between what is typically what type of problems their clients are facing, looking into where AR, VR has proved to actually add value, and then finding something at that intersection that will allow to go past this initial pilot into putting AR, VR on the roadmap for their product development in the future. So the team is actually, right now, we are in the latest stages of this project. We have connected 3 Microsoft HoloLens devices that allows people to not only interact with this augmented reality system that we implemented for them, but it's also enabled this user to actually collaborate with each other. So we check the box in terms of finding value that links business intelligence and data and analytics to the benefits of augmented reality and VR, but also bringing together the aspect of collaboration that's offered between data scientists and people who are actually leveraging the tools of their analysis.
So I'm going to try and put that into layman's terms for me to be able to visualize it. Are we talking putting on a set of goggles and using hands to, do an operation? Are we talking about like what's the actual physical? What's it look like when you're working with a client?
It's a good question. I'm going to try to answer you while not, violating any of the non-disclosure we have. So the technology we're using is a Microsoft HoloLens. So it's one of these devices that look like a motorcycle helmet. And then what this allows you to visualize a 3D environment, then another person that's sitting in the same environment as you are will see the same object. So as opposed to having 2 different renderings on your computers, you all look in the same location, and one person interaction with this 3-dimensional environment will be visible by the other individual. So we created, if you want, like a virtual world, the same way you see in gaming, in which multiple people can participate and interact. So a data scientist is looking at data information that he's analyzing, looking for patterns, looking for what's the story to tell here, is acting a bit of a detective. I have this information. What's the hypothesis that I should be forming? How is data helping me solve this? So He's looking in this type of spreadsheets in here, and then as he's manipulating and he's segmenting the data, you see the results apply to this 3-dimensional object. So there is the concept of digital twin, which is basically saying it can model a physical object and creates a digital replica of that particular object. So now we're bringing together real physical objects with data and analytics, and then we bring all these pieces together through virtual reality using the Microsoft HoloLens in an environment that allows for collaboration between multiple team members.
Cool. Ready?
All right.
Okay, jumping now a little bit to, you're based in Vancouver. Are you right downtown, Adrian, or where in Vancouver are you?
Yes, we are. So I can move my camera just a bit to show you
cool.
a great view from our office here. We are right in downtown Vancouver, and if you can see, it's a view from the harbor and where the cruises dock in the summer. It's a great location because it's a very convenient access from using the SkyTrain or coming to and from the airport, buses, also the sea bus. So it's a very convenient location, but also close to many of our clients.
Perfect. Tell me a little bit about what is unique about doing business in Vancouver from your experience.
So I think the business ecosystem and the startup ecosystem in Vancouver have evolved quite a bit. Since I remember when we started a few years back, there wasn't as many success stories and as much availability of resources that exist right now. And then one of the things that were happening was the scarcity of both talent and funding. So companies reaching a certain size, people were complaining in terms of which are these kind of enterprise, kind of the motherships who have organizations that go above 50 million, 100 millions into $1 billion in terms of growing to a certain size, which is a level of commitment that's much more substantial than entrepreneurs taking the company 5 million, 10 million, and then making a quick exit, right? So having a large organization, think about organizations that maybe Electronic Arts that I used to work for in the past. Now we're seeing organizations like Hootsuite also getting ready for some sort of an activity or an exit. So more recently, we saw some other acquisitions that reach $1 billion in terms of the size of the company that are growing in Vancouver. So with that, we're seeing certain industry being established, and definitely with the digital supercluster starting in Vancouver and the government of Canada committing hundreds of millions of dollars over a number of years with commitment from the industry to create this type of interactions and collaboration between universities, small businesses, and large enterprises. So I think that overall, we are well positioned because of the availability of talent, being on the West Coast when a lot of things are happening in this corridor, Vancouver, Seattle, Portland, California. Time zone, transportations, availability of talent, and now investment in people that are willing to basically invest in Canadian organization. This has significantly improved. We're by no means in the same league as Silicon Valley, but I think that it's a positive trend, and I like to acknowledge that.
Adrian, what's your perspective? Tell me, just if you could comment on the supercluster. What is it, and how is it going to define British Columbia business over the next decade, from your perspective?
So the government of Canada has invested in a number of initiatives, and they kind of break down into a number of, some on the East Coast, some in the prairies, this one in Vancouver, in British Columbia. The one in British Columbia, the digital supercluster is focusing on technologies, anywhere from life sciences. I mentioned to you earlier the concept of the digital supercluster. So organizations such as Telos, such as Microsoft, have been spearheading some of these initiatives, but the objective here is not to add dollars to the already rich and large organization, but to foster collaboration to get a project funded through the digital supercluster. We need to bring together a partnership that involves academia, that involves small businesses, and involve an enterprise sponsor. So the objective is to increase collaboration and to enable the creation of IP here in British Columbia, allowing us to solve those problems within Canada, but also to expand, to export this IP internationally too.
Are you involved in any supercluster projects yourself?
We are associated with the digital supercluster, but we are not part of the projects that have started already. Okay. The digital supercluster, I think, is still in the startup kind of phase. They have a new leadership team. They're trying to understand the balance between putting some processes in place, but also not being too onerous in terms of the level of overhead that's required in terms of putting this application together and running these projects.
Mm-hmm.
We decided to give it a bit of time to see how this initial project play out. And then based on that to calibrate, but we'll have to sort of see opportunities to partner with a number of organizations such as Live Labs or TELUS, who are already engaged in this type of supercluster initiatives.
Let's make it personal for a moment. If you could wave a magic wand, this is Adrian now talking. Adrian's waving a magic wand, and you could solve a world problem with this supercluster efforts based out of BC. What would you love to see happen?
I think the digital supercluster has a number of initiatives that they are focusing on. So what I'm saying right now may not be at the top of the list, but one of the things that I'm particularly passionate about is about education and enabling children from all over the world to have access to their most valuable asset, which is knowledge. We're going into the knowledge economy, and right now, access to information and knowledge is what creates the separation between classes. And then by unleashing this, it will enable well-being throughout the entire world as opposed to richer getting more rich. So technology is hitting the world, is disrupting all kind of industry. One of them is education. And for example, right now, the education system is based on people studying the same materials, expecting you to assimilate information the same speed, and then you have standardized testing. But right now, the trend is towards personalization. People absorb information in different ways. Some people through video channels, some people through writing, some people through audios. The same way people are talking about omni-channel experiences in, let's say, retail, the same way it should happen into education. And there are already some initiatives that are looking to reassess how we've been studying for a long time and to allow for this type of personalized scenario in which people can assimilate information at their own speed, and how are we adaptive to their needs, and also catering this education to also recognize and identify what are people's strengths and how do we play to those particular strengths. I remember an experiment that was run fairly recently. So students took that test at the end of summer as usual, and then they break out for the vacation. And then when they brought the students back, they asked them to take the same test that they took 2 or 3 months before going in summer. But they were concerned, well, some of this information is not as relevant, so why don't we change a bit the test to focus only on the information that's actually more important or meaningful? And guess what? Most of the students actually failed the test. So this idea about absorbing a lot of information solely for the purpose of passing the test is just going to an all-you-can-eat buffet, overindulge yourself, and then discarding all that right away. So none of that is actually getting settled and assimilated. So we need to move away from rewarding people, oh, are you able to memorize this information, and being compliant to certain scenarios and tests, to what kind of work will be successful in the future. And since we right now are thinking linearly about growth and change, what if things change exponentially? All we know about and what we learn right now is going to become obsolete. So then how do you stay still relevant? And how do we prepare these kids for what may happen 20 years from now?
So Adrian, how old are your kids?
18 and 15.
15. So I have a 10-year-old and a 12-year-old. So I constantly get the question from my 12-year-old boy, right? I don't understand why we're learning that. This is going to be completely irrelevant for me. I'm sure you get similar comments from your own children. What advice are you giving them? What is the single most important piece of skill or knowledge that our kids should be embracing now to take them into the future?
So there are a few skills. So one is learning how to learn. The second is the ability to collaborate with others. The other thing is, don't just get a job, make your own job. So, for example, my daughter is 18 and she was involved in 3 startups already. She was in Boston recently where her team won an international business competition. So these kids are not following into the footsteps of, I'm going to go to school, I'm going to go to work, and then I'm going to spend 20, 30 years working for the same companies. They are very driven by purpose as opposed to ownership of things. And they are challenging the status quo. They have less patience for things being done always at the older pace, and they looking for instant gratification. So going back, we know that a number of jobs will be changed because computers will be able to do a lot of the repetitive stuff that we do.
Right.
The good news, however, is it will free us to do some work that can be more meaningful and of higher value. So how do you bring that thinking? Think about right now, design thinking, and tomorrow, Equilibrium, for example, is attending a workshop that we organized with Duncan Warden, former head of innovation from Disney, focusing on design thinking, creativity, and innovation. That will not be replaced by computers. The computers will replace manual, repetitive, boring tasks. However, it doesn't mean that, for example, we will no longer need developers. What we may need is a developer may do the work of a whole team by himself in a shorter period of time. And that actually, they will actually end up being even more valuable and we pay even more, as opposed to, we're not going to need them anymore.
Right.
It will change the way we do a number of these things. And there is an obligation for schools and government, but also for technology providers to understand what is that vision for the future looks like, and then how do we set up these children and this education system to be aligned.
I love it. I am going to jump to what right now, Adrian, can you think of a recommended reading let's jump to maybe the younger generation. If something's crossed your mind, or you think there's companies that should be thinking about how to gear up for the future, what can you suggest something that should be on the reading list?
So I remember when I decided to sort of start Equilibrium, there was this book about lean startup with Eric Ries as a founder, and we were in an amphitheater at SFU, and he was presenting to a bunch of eager, excited entrepreneurs to be. And then, what do you think about entrepreneurship? Well, it's good. It's going to do that. We're going to change the world. And he's like, entrepreneurship is brutal. It's hard. It's like, wow, this guy is on a raining on upright. What's going on? So the good news is, however, we have distilled some of the challenges that are happening when you start a new business. And there is this concept called lean startup, which is taking an approach which is not unlike what I did in my academia years. So during my PhD, you start with hypothesis, and then you build an experiment to validate or invalidate that. Well, why don't you do that with a business proposition or with a product that you want to build? Absolutely. So the concept of lean startup is to hypothesize. I believe if I build a product that does this and this, people will use it this way, and they're willing to sort of will make this impact on them or on the end users, and they will be willing to sort of pay us certain amounts of money and so on.
Can you think of 3 top resources that either people who want to get hired or companies that are looking at being based out of Vancouver could tap into as a network or a valuable resource?
So there are a number of meetups. So there is this network that allows people that are connected with a certain community to get to learn from each other. So that's one of these forums that I encourage, and everybody at any level can find the meetup that it's relevant for them.
So
Also,
if I literally, Adrian, if I look up meetups Vancouver, there's going to be like 20 of them. Is there a particular one that jumps out for you?
It depends on what, for example, that meetups for entrepreneurs. There are meetups for product managers. So we're seeing organizations, for example, from Silicon Valley opening offices here in Vancouver, or companies who have other offices in Toronto, they're looking to open a second office. So depending on what is important for them, what's that, as I was mentioning a moment ago, the big hypothesis, we believe what? We're going to find this type of talent, we believe this is relevant for the people here. Gotcha. Depending on what problem they're trying to solve, they can join the appropriate meetup. Perfect. For the leadership team, what I did is I found valuable to have peer networks, and one of them is called the ASTEC CEO Forum, which is focusing on CEOs of technology companies. And I chaired one of these CEO roundtable for a couple of years until I joined the McKay CEO Forum, which is probably 1,000 executive, mostly CEOs throughout the entire Canada. And we get together regularly with a professional facilitator, which is the chair of the roundtable. We bring speakers, and then we share problems. We help each other. We hear other people in terms of what's important to them. So the other thing that I also found valuable is to put together an advisory board. So looking into what are my strengths, and then where are the areas where I could use some help.
Nice.
So surrounding myself with people that been there, done that has been very valuable for us.
Great tip. Just kind of a classic Canada's podcast question is, if you found yourself stranded on a deserted island, Adrian, with only one telephone call to make, how long would you last without technology? What would you do there? And when you were ready to leave, who would you call?
Well, depending on how that island looks like, you know, the conditions there, nothing wrong with taking a bit of a break. And then how do you make most out of your environment? I know, for example, part of that balance, I like practicing martial arts or practicing Tai Chi or meditation. So that may be a great environment, you know, to have some me time or some personal time. Also, in the organization, you often risk to be just busy doing stuff. I was reading about the difference between Warren Buffett and Bill Gates. Bill Gates has his schedules booked to the minute, or Warren Buffett barely have any meetings for the entire week, because he thinks his most valuable contribution to this company is actually thinking, not actually doing all those things by himself. So I think for me, getting a bit of personal time and getting some reflection, both about the company and me personally, can be quite valuable. How long would I last in there? I'm not sure. I haven't been a fan of these survival island or so on scenarios. I think I'm pretty resourceful and entrepreneurial, and that if you want, that survival skills are pretty good. I also, as I mentioned, enjoy the concept of self-defense and so on. So I think these things combined will give me a fair chance to actually go beyond just surviving, but actually maybe thriving and enjoying my time there. Nice. If I were to make a call, there are a number of people that come to mind that I could call or reach out or tap into, from my wife, my colleagues in here. Definitely another person that would come to mind would be maybe calling my brother, because I'm, you know, somebody that I love dearly and is very close to me. It's also the person that will go to the end of the world to sort of get me out of trouble or bring him back.
So I was gonna say, so he'd come get you and bring you back.
That's right.
So what's the best way to get a hold of you after today?
I am quite active on LinkedIn, and that's a great way to connect with me. Our website, equilibrium.com, we have the contact numbers, forms in there. There's a phone number where I can be reached out. or people can follow me on social media, in particular on LinkedIn and on Twitter. My Twitter handle is CPTMMBL. Captain Mobile is my Twitter handle.
Perfect. Well, Adrian, it has been a pleasure. Thank you for your insights on both on the company and maybe, over the workplace of the future and the work skills of the future. It's been super insightful. Once again, thanks for tuning into Canada's podcast, and we'll follow up so you can talk to and engage with Adrian after the podcast.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed talking to you.